What do you say, guys? Hanging out with you from the spring training complex in Mesa, Arizona with Randy Bush, senior advisor to the Cubs. I'm Mick Gillispie. Let's get this thing started. But before we do, let me ask you for a favor. Like and subscribe. Give us a thumbs up. Get those questions in the comments section. Let's get this party started. What do you say, everybody? Great to hang out with you. And it's always wonderful to see Randy Bush as we're out here on this beautiful spring day in Arizona. Senior advisor.
Yep. Good to be here, Mick.
Great to see you. You don't look like a senior to me, though.
Well, thank you. I apprate that. I feel like one, though.
You do?
So, yeah.
I do, too. But it was probably the drinks I had last night at the hotel bar. But that's part of spring training, right? People come over. They want to talk to you. You get a chance to catch up with everyone and talk a lot of baseball. When did you come over to the Cubs?
I came over to the Cubs in 2005. Jim Hendry and Andy McPhail were both people that I had known in the industry for a while, and they brought me in as a special assistant position just to kind of learn things about the Cubs, and it went from there. Yeah. So
cool, because you get to do some scouting, right? And as a former player and part of some awesome teams with the Twins, something I was going to ask you about. And you get to advise the guys that call the shots, right?
That's right.
How's that process go? How do you put together the information that you want to share with, Jim Hendry or Theo Epstein or Jed Hoyer?
It's in the role that I'm in now as a senior advisor. It's more of a part-time position, but it's great. I mean, I come out here to spring training, sit in on some meetings, observe what's going on, be another eyes and ears for Jed and Carter, and in their discussions with other teams about what we might be doing, that type of thing. And then during the season, not only will I go to Chicago a couple of times, but I'll go see our minor league system and just enjoy, again, spending time with our coaching staffs and getting to know the players, and again, being another resource. However, Jed, Carter, Jared, Ban, or anybody else wants to utilize me for an opinion.
Baseball scouting's changed a lot. It's just different now, right? You got the analytics part of it. Had a great conversation yesterday with Essen about that. He's one of the guys that puts all of that stuff together.
Sure.
And then there's guys like you that played in the big leagues, and you kind of are able to look and watch and see, what makes a player great. Guys like Pete Crow Armstrong or Owen Casey. When you're scouting, are you looking and saying, hey, this guy reminds me of Kirby Puckett, or this guy reminds me of, somebody I played with or played against? Or how do you kind of go through that process of figuring out what it is that you like about a player, or what maybe you don't like about them?
So, it's a great question. And I think sometimes when you see a player, a name pops into your head that he naturally reminds you of, but I try not to force that. I want that to just happen if it does. But mostly the great thing is that Jed and Carter, for example, I mean, they just want all the information to help them make a better decision, whatever we're talking about, a trade or an acquisition, anything along those lines. So, they want all the analytic information, they want all the scouting information, they want all the medical information, all of the information. And then they're the ones who have to filter through it all, put the right weight on different sources of that information, and make the best decision they can. Every organization is working really, really hard with really, really smart, good people. All they're trying to do is just shift the odds up a little bit from 50-50, just shift it a little bit more in our favor. Make it 52-48 that we're going to get a decision right. That's really all you can hope for. And if you do that enough times, then those little extra good decisions that you made are going to be the difference in shaping a really, really good organization.
It definitely makes a lot of sense. You used to do some stuff with contracts, right? Maybe advise in that area. Jed had an excellent year, in my opinion, working contracts out. Contracts that are fair for both sides. And I know, like, as a player, you're trying to get your best interest. As a front office, you're trying to get your best interest. And that has changed, I think, a lot of the game too. Because when you were a player, it's a lot different, than it was last year, a couple years ago, than it is now.
It really is, and I big kudos to our front office for the patience that they showed this winter, and the fact that Cody Bellinger, for example, had to wait a while and had to wait, but then, ultimately you end up with a deal that I think everybody would look at that and say, wow, that's a great deal for both sides.
Yeah.
Okay, that's a great deal for the Cubs, and that's a great deal for the player. And sometimes you have to have that kind of patience, and it's hard to do because everybody looks at it like, well, here we are in December at the winter meetings. Let's get stuff done here,
right.
and it just doesn't always work that way. So, big kudos for patience and for having the right information and getting some deals done that really have positioned us in our division to have a good year this year, as long as we can stay healthy, which is always the key.
Yeah, that's exciting, and I'm with you. And I tip my cap, and I think it's good for baseball too. When you're able to have deals that both sides feel good about.
Absolutely. That's when deals get done, is when both sides feel good about it. And so that's what you should be striving towards. And I think young executives sometimes will make a mistake where they feel like, no, we have to win the deal. We have to win the deal, whatever it is, whether it's an acquisition or a trade. And then deals don't get done that way. You need to strive for something that's going to work for both sides.
It reminds me of Gary Hughes, and I'm going to tell you why. But a couple days ago, Mike Zunino, Gary Hughes' godson, retired, and I saw where Bob Nightingale kind of gave Gary a shout out, the late Gary Hughes, which is still hard for us to believe, right?
Absolutely.
The guy that we both loved.
Yep.
And I would sit and listen to him, and he would talk to me about that. Hey, you're not trying to beat someone in a trade. You're just trying to make it a fair deal for both sides. And I always think about that. And he's like, because you may have to go back and do another deal, so you want them to feel good about it. You want to feel good about it. That's one thing. And then the other thing is, he says, you always call someone back when they call you.
Oh my God.
It's say that. So every time I don't, I'm always like, oh man, that's the Gary Hughes rule to me.
Well, let me tell you, Gary was a source of unbelievable wisdom for all of us. And just like you, I learned so much from Gary. Gary's one of the first people that I spent a ton of time with when I joined the Cubs. Jim Hendry said, hey, hang out with Gary Hughes, go to games with him, just listen to him. And I learned so much from him. But, you remember certain things, like you said, and along the lines of that, if he would say a name or something, I'd say, oh, I need to call that guy. He would say, do it right now.
Yeah.
He would always say, do it right now. If something pops into your head, I need to call somebody, then do it, and there were just so many things where he and I would be scouting, and I would learn from him. And he's absolutely, what he said is right. If you think you're going to take advantage of somebody in a deal, then you won't be dealing with that club again in the future. And you just be narrowing down your network of who you can work deals with in the future. Yeah.
If you guys never saw Gary before, he kind of reminded me of the Big Lebowski, the goatee, the Hawaiian shirt he wore everywhere.
Yep.
And also was genuinely, I think, the best person I've ever met in baseball.
Well, that's high praise, and it's well deserved for Gary. That's for sure.
Yeah. So we're thinking about him. When you look at where the Cubs are right now, Cody Bellinger's back, what they were able to accomplish last year, and then bringing Craig Counsell over, right? Mm-hmm. How do you feel about where this team is going into opening day?
Well, I guess I'm just like everybody. I'm really excited with Craig Counsell being here. He's a guy that a lot of us have admired from the other side of the field for a long time, where you just always felt like he was really, really getting the most out of his ball clubs. Very hard to compete against his teams. You always felt like they were prepared, and it's exciting to have him on our side. And I've heard nothing but great things about him since I've been here, about the relationships he's established, not only with the players, but with his staff. So we're really excited about that. And the ball club, like I said, we feel like we have a division that's there for the taking, and that if we can have good health and get off to a good start, that really good things can happen this year.
Yeah, it's exciting. And it kind of reminds me, too, of your days with the Twins, where when you're with Milwaukee or you're with Minnesota, you've got to do a lot of the little things right, because you're not going to have the resources that the Yankees have, that the Red Sox have, that the Dodgers have, and even that the Cubs have.
Yeah, I think absolutely true. And that's why you always felt like, gosh, he is getting the most out of every drop of talent they have over there. And it just was exciting when the opportunity presented itself, and Jed and Carter were able to get that deal done. It really was an exciting time for everybody.
So you were a player with the Twins. Did you play for anybody else besides the Twins?
I only played for the Twins.
That's what I thought. Okay.
Yep.
And I just wanted to say that because you were a Twin for a long time, but you've been a Cub for a long time.
That's right.
So what are you? Are you a Twin or a Cub?
I'm a Cub right now.
Okay. Yes.
I'm a Cub right now, but in my heart, there's some wonderful Twins memories that'll always be a part of me. That's for sure.
Yeah. So let's talk about some of your favorite teams. Obviously, we all remember Kirby Puckett.
Right.
And you played with Kirby Puckett, and you were on those teams, those winning teams.
Right.
They always seem to find a way to get it done. And you were one of the guys who would just do what the team asked you to do.
That's right. That's right. We won the World Series in 1987 and then again in 1991. You remember those championship teams. You remember the players, the laugh, all the good times that you shared together. I think that 91 team, I think that World Series, we beat the Braves in 7 games. And I think most people acknowledge that was one of the top 5 World Series of all times. It was just incredible. There were 4 or 5 one-run games, 4 extra inning games, 3 walk-offs, including Game 6 and Game 7. Jack Morris and John Smoltz dueled in Game 7 for 10 innings, and we won 1-0. And just unbelievable to be a part of that. And I get goosebumps just thinking about it.
I'm thinking about it too, man.
Yeah. So
I can still hear how loud the dome was.
Oh my gosh.
You know, like the trash bags out there.
Really loud, really tremendous fan enthusiasm. And
was it extra loud? I mean, was that the loudest place you ever played?
Yes. Oh, absolutely.
Because that dome just kind of kept the noise in.
It kept the noise in. We drew really well. We had 55,000 people there every night, and it would get so loud that I were talking as close as we are sitting on the bench in the dugout. You had to like shout at each other to be heard. That's how loud it was even down in the dugout. So just a great environment, and really something that helped uplift us. Very similar to how Wrigley Field gets when that enthusiasm takes over late in the game and the fans are standing up and screaming and yelling. It's that energy absolutely is felt down in the dugout. Yeah,
no doubt. When I think of the Twins, I think of Harmon Killebrew, because he came to one of our right before he died. He looked like he was in great shape at the time. He was a special guest at the Rickwood Classic, which is where they're going to have the MLB game this year in Alabama, right?
Right.
Rickwood Field.
Yes.
And they're going to honor Willie Mays this year. Okay. It's going to be the Cardinals against the Giants. And that's Willie Mays' hometown, right? Well, they played a game in AA baseball there every year. And when they have that one game, it's the oldest Stephen Wrigley and Fenway. And he was the guest one year. It's like, signing autographs, talking, did interviews and stuff. And so then I went back and I'm like, okay, this guy's awesome. It's like, all the home runs and everything. And I start looking back on the Twins that he played on. And they just couldn't get past Baltimore, and they just couldn't get past the A's, but they were so good. And then you guys came along, and you were the Twins team that got them over the mountain.
You're right. The Minnesota had such a rich history in baseball, and some great teams with Harmon Killebrew and Rod Carew and Tony Oliva, and just, legendary, great players. But they hadn't actually won the World Series. And I do remember in 1987, that World Series went 7 games. Also, I actually remember riding to the ballpark for Game 7 and thinking if we lose this game, we're just going to be one more Minnesota team that fell short in the final game. And it was definitely an extra burden that we felt, and what a feeling to overcome that and win that. And then how special to have that even magnified more as a member of the Chicago Cubs then in 2016.
Yeah.
And to know the weight of those expectations, and then to see our players come through the way they did in 2016 and break the curse after all those years. And wow, just really, really special memories.
Yeah, and what's amazing too is to win it and then come back and with the same team, the same group, a lot of the same guys to win it again. And I think that's one of the toughest things to do in sports, and I've talked about it on here occasionally, had John Lieber on. So you guys know, I also have a Bama channel. He was on, we did 2 shows, right? And we just put it out a couple days ago. So guys, check that out. But you'll see the covering Alabama and Nick Saban's ability to forget about winning. Right. And then we won the World Series, and it was really difficult to do that, because it was just so enormous. Right. Looking back on that, and then trying to get back again now, and it's a totally different team.
Right.
There's just to me, there's just so many regrets because we had so many special players back then. But it's the toughest thing ever is to do what you guys did and come back and win it again.
Yeah. It's the 2016 team is just fascinating. I think we had 5 guys in the lineup in the World Series who were under 24 years old, and you would have thought, wow, this is a juggernaut that is just going to be hard to beat going forward. And instead, somebody's going to write a book about it, about human nature and how hard it is when you do climb the mountaintop to stay on top. First of all, it's extremely competitive, and like I said, a lot of smart people with all the teams. But for whatever reason, we weren't able to continue that momentum, even though we went to the championship series the next year, but we just never felt like we were able to continue to knock down the door with that group. And now, like you said, we have a whole new group that's ready for the next challenge. A lot of exciting young guys that are coming. And it's a fun time for the Chicago Cubs right now. Yeah,
and look, it was a job that Jed Hoyer had to also do, which I really can't compliment him enough on. Just the way that I'm seeing the organization transform itself, getting back to our blue collar ways. I see these young players coming up, and I want to ask you about a couple of those guys, and then having to say goodbye to guys that we love to this day. I mean, we're always going to love Chris Bryant. We're always going to love Javi Baez. The thing that Kyle Hendricks, who I just saw a couple minutes ago, the only guy left, unless CJ makes the team, right?
Yeah.
Which would be great too. But to just think, like, you look at Houston and they were kind of able to, keep the nucleus of their team together, Altuve and that. But it's just the way that it worked out, because it was such the magnitude of that World Series.
Oh, I mean,
was it like that when you won with the Twins?
Look, we love the players as much as the fans love those players you just mentioned. I mean, we were attached to them also.
Yeah.
And yet the reality set in at the trade deadline in 2021 that, look, for the organization, this is the right thing to do. This is what we're going to have to do. And but it was hard for us.
Yeah.
You had to separate your emotions for how much you care about all those players. They're good people. They're people we love. And yet it was the right thing to do to make those trades. And I give Jed all the credit in the world. We made good trades. We acquired a lot of the young talent that now everybody's excited about, and that's getting ready to help us once again try to climb that mountain.
Yeah. And look, you go back in those trades and you start to see the guys that we got back. Okay, so Baez went to the Mets. You got Pete Crow Armstrong, and Hollywood Pete is, I know it hasn't translated yet to the big leagues, but it will. It's coming. You got Owen Casey from Yu Darvish. I know he wasn't on the World Series, but another great trade. We all saw what he can do. Yeah. Alexander Canario was the Chris Bryant trade, and Caleb Killian.
Right.
And then Kevin Alcantara was Rizzo.
Yep.
I mean, so these are like the top guys and some of the top guys in the organization. And then the scouting department goes out and they get some guys too, the Cade Hortons and the Matt Shaws. And
that's right.
This is as strong of an organization as in my 20 years, just as far as like from top to bottom depth. And I said this too, MLB Pipeline does like a top 30 prospect list. I could make another 10. You know what I'm saying? Like I could put another 10 guys in there or more, but at least 10 where you're like, hey, this guy can play and this guy could be, this guy's a prospect to me and this guy, you know?
Right. And, you talk about organizational health and part of that is having all of those exciting prospects that you're talking about and more. Some are going to make it, some aren't. That's the nature of the game. But the other important thing is that we don't have a lot of money tied up long-term in long-term deals that can at some point really, really restrict you in the future. So the organization is very healthy. We feel good about that. And we feel like, if we can put ourselves in the right position, then we'll be able to add on at the trade deadline like you want to be able to add on. And that's a way better position than feeling like you have to subtract at that point. So we're ready to get to that point where we're heading on at the deadline year after year.
Yeah, great point. All right, last thing I want to ask you about. I am just going to give you my opinion. I think that minor league baseball is watered down compared to what it used to be, and I feel like that's one of the reasons why you're seeing players have such a difficult jump from AAA to the big leagues. We got rid of teams. We don't have as many levels of draft, right? And guys move a lot faster. And to me, what used to happen is you'd have guys that be in AAA that were like, just machines, and had been there for a long time. Those 4A guys, they're in there and they're just pounding, whether it's pitching or hitting, the young guys. And for you to really be successful, you would have to kind of deal with those guys. And then they would get to the big leagues and get back.
Right.
And I just feel like now it's like, I don't see the big difference between double and AAA. When I first started doing broadcasting in the minor leagues, I felt like the jump from A ball to AA was the big jump. Now it's like AAA to the big leagues to me is like enormous.
It is.
That's my opinion. What do you think?
It is. And a lot of it is because of pitching attrition. And so what happens is, because as an industry, we have a hard time keeping our pitching healthy.
Yeah.
What happens is that impacts the triple so much that on a daily basis, they're sending guys up because you need the arms in the big leagues. That affects what's going on in AAA. Also, a lot of times, you stockpile veteran guys that have some experience that can go up and help, whether it's pitching or position players. So you're right. The level that you're at in AA is a lot of times where you're going to see the best prospects playing because they have the playing time there. They've progressed through the system. And now you're seeing this guy who, wow, these guys are headed for the big leagues at the right time. But in AAA, we're going to keep our guys that are ready to go up and down at a moment's notice because they have the experience. Those guys in AA are still developing and learning their craft, but they're the talented guys that have a chance to be really, really good major leaguers in the future.
When you're scouting and it's like a position player and you want to know how good they are, do you try to watch them against the best pitchers in the minor leagues? Because to me, you can really tell who can truly hit by seeing what they do against the guy on the other team that's the best.
Yeah. You want to, and especially the ability to hit velocity, because when you get to the big league, you're going to have velocity. Yeah. And so certainly you want to take note of the fact that can this guy get to that? Can he get to that 96 mile an hour fastball? Can he get there with his A swing? And to your point, or is he just beating up on some of the lesser pitchers in the league? But that's all part of it, all part of the analysis of what you're looking at. And of course, we have all the analytic data telling us stuff too, but scouts always look at things through their own set of eyes, and nobody was better at it than Gary Hughes, as we talked about, and we learned a lot from him. That's for sure. Did.
Well, before we get off here, I asked Coom Dog this, and this is going to be a question now for everyone.
Okay.
Baseball memorabilia. Tell me what your best baseball memorabilia piece is. I have a Rhino gave me a fungo bat, and he signed it from 2009. And I also have a picture, and this was because my dad loved the 71 Orioles pitching staff because they all won. 4 guys won 20 games. So I have a 16 by 20. All of them signed it and put their win total. So it would be Jim Palmer, Pat Dobson, Mike Cuellar, and Dobson, and McNally. And that thing's on the wall in my baseball room.
I'm not a big memorabilia person. I never collected anything like that. I mean, for me, what just jumps out is I have 3 World Series rings. I mean, that is so unbelievably special. Every one of them went 7 games, and the right team won Game 7. And I think about that often, and I'm like, wow, how special is that? How blessed have I been to have been a part of that? And that's as special as it gets. I have 3 grandchildren, and occasionally they like to drag out the World Series rings and look at them, and that's just really special to me, and it makes me feel blessed.
That's awesome. Do you ever wear them anywhere?
I don't.
I just got mine. Well, it's great to see you, Bushy. Thank you for coming on, and we'll see you during the season. But it's been a great conversation.
Great to see you, Mick. Really enjoyed it. Thank you.
All right, guys, make sure that you like and subscribe. Get in the comment section. Tell me what you think, and we will talk to you guys again soon. Go Cubs.